How you guys doing tonight? This should be a fun video. I just posted the video, I don't know, a day or two ago on this, the review on the ZT450. I had mentioned that inside the pivot here, I had to clean what looked like some surface rust. So I want to break it down live on camera, and we're going to discover what's going on in there together. Maybe we'll clean it up. I've got all the proper things to clean it up with, all my tools here. We're going to go. This could be a longer video. I'm not quite sure. Just sit back, pour yourself a drink, and we're going to enjoy ourselves. So this is some Angry Orchard here. We use the Rexford Rut. Okay. And pour a little bit in my Samuel Adams glass here, and then throw a shot of Fireball in that for an angry fireball. Beautiful stuff. We're going to sip on this while we break this knife apart. Maybe talk about the internals and see what's going on with possibly what looks like could be a little bit of rust. I don't know. We're going to figure it out together. We'll clean it up. Cheers. Beautiful. All right. If you've never tried that, that's great. Fireball cinnamon whiskey. A little bit sugary and sweet, but very good inside your Angry Orchard. It's not a drink you'd want to have more than one of, I don't think. But it's very enjoyable. We're going to cut this lanyard off here so we can see what's going on. Today's EDC was the Bowie here. What do they call these? The Slits Bowie? Alright, quit farting around. And then of course my Rexford Rut. Let's break this sucker down. I did make sure that I had the correct T tools here. So we're going to use two T8s and a T6. That should get us. If not, I don't know. So we're going to start by taking off the clip here. The hinder clip. I'm on my good camera here. Hopefully this video doesn't go over 20 minutes. I guess you can check on the video after it's uploaded, but right now shooting this video, I have no idea how long this is going to take. Usually what I'll do is I'll loosen up the pivot because I've heard this pivot can spin. I'm going to put a tool on each side of this, loosen it up. Ooh, wow. Ooh, that's got a lot of Loctite on it. I'm making progress though. Wow, you can see the Loctite breaking off in there. Okay, well, I didn't bring Loctite out here to Loctite this baby back when we put it back together. We'll see if we even get that far. Let's inspect it first. Let's use this T6. I'm going to leave that pivot kind of together there, and then take this out. And if you remember, this was one of the knocks on the knife, was that that's actually threaded into the titanium there. It is cool. This knife will be customized eventually when I get some time. But it is kind of cool that they put those red spacers in there to just add a little bit of color. And Kershaw kind of seems to like red. Now I'm not sure. Those are probably aluminum. Can't really anodize titanium red. I've never seen it. You can get close. You can get like a purpley pinkish color, but not quite red like that. That looks a lot like anodized aluminum. Alright, we're going to see how difficult this thing is. Now in theory this should just come right apart. Ooh, and what happened? Oh yeah, look at this. So I've never had this knife apart. Look at all that garbage. And it doesn't look like the S30V blade was rusting. It looks like something's going on in those bearings. And I carried and used this knife a lot, so You know, maybe this is just not doing my regular maintenance properly, or maybe something's going on with these bearings. What's that? Oh, that looks like a little piece of pine needle. Don't worry about that. Huh. Well, nothing looks real funky in here. All the bearings, looks like there's no rust. Maybe it's just wear somehow. Dirt and dust, but it does look like rust. You know what's a possibility too? Is I was using this knife a lot in the shop, and it's very possible that some sandblasting dust got in there, and maybe that had some metal shavings in it, and you know, just kind of got caught up in the Tough Glide that I did use to squirt in here a couple times. I never had this knife like submerged underwater. I didn't go swimming with this knife or anything, but I did use it to like cut some apples and fruit and different things like that. I can't remember exactly everything I cut, but I know I did get the blade wet, and I did clean it off a few times, you know. And when you wipe it, sometimes when you close it down and put it in your pocket, especially going tip up, the water, if you didn't dry your blade off all the way, can drip down into there. You know, and then using something, trying to break that off. This is supposed to be like a dry lube, but if you put a little bit too much on, it'll take a little bit to dry. Do you know what I mean? So if it was a little bit wet in the bearings around the pivot, it could have attracted some dirt and dust in there. I don't know. I'm just trying to figure out why it looks like rust. And then again, it doesn't seem to be rust. It just looks like it's the color of rust. Does that make sense? It doesn't look rusted. Let's put some lighter fluid. I get asked a lot, what do I use to clean my bearings? And what do I use to lube the bearings up? I use lighter fluid. Usually I'll do something like this. Take a little medicine cup, squirt some in here. Okay, lighter fluid's super cheap. And I'll throw my bearings in there. Let them sit for a little bit. Shake them around a little bit. Let that sit. Let the lighter fluid kind of strip some of the grease and gunk off that. And then what we'll do is put some lighter fluid on this towel. Clean this area up here and see if there actually is any rust on there. Which didn't look like it. It's weird because you think it should be pitted. Maybe it is. Or is that just like surface? Yeah, that's like... I'm not trying to make excuses or find anything wrong with the knife. I'm just trying to discover it here with you and see what's going on. Oh man, you know what? I should have brought out some cotton swabs. Yeah, we'll be alright. See, no wear on that lock. And believe me, I have flipped this knife thousands of times. And I'm going to have to do that off camera. When I put it back together, I will have to take it back apart, just the pivot, and add some Loctite into that. Because that's why that pivot wasn't moving. While we're on camera here, I wanted to look at the pivot for you guys, let you know if that's actually like a D-hole lockdown pivot or what's going on. We'll look at the lock bar. Cheers. Alright. Let me know if you like these kind of videos. I thought about when I put together a knife that I've customized, you know, and tuning it and doing all that, just turning the camera on and doing a video a lot like this. So there's your stop pin. You can see how they have it in the far top forward position. And that's how they are able to tuck this blade up into the handle so deep, right? And it hits that front flipper area, which I didn't mention in the review. Even that's rounded there. And then when it comes around here, the blade also wraps around there, which is what I like to see when it comes to a stop pin. You know. And most of you guys know why, but for the people who are kind of new to knives, anytime you can distribute that pressure from a flat like 90 degree, just hitting that round pin in one spot, and you can wrap it around even a little bit, you know, you start increasing the area of wear, so it's stronger, and it's not going to let the blade go back farther, which will let that lock walk over. Does that make sense? Because if this blade stop was back here, or start hammering itself back, then that changes the angle down here, and your lockup starts sliding all the way across and hitting the other scale, which is no good. That's weird to see that gunk on here. That's why I was saying that it might be something from the bearing. It might just be some of my sandblasting dust that's accumulated around here, and possibly if I had some steel in that sandblasting dust, which of course I would, right? It would leave some surface rust like that. But titanium can't rust. Not that I know of. So, a little bit of... What's a text message there? A little bit of lighter fluid on that. You should clean that titanium right off. I did think enough to bring some toothpicks out here. So we can see here. See if we can scrape some of this stuff off. Yep. It's coming right off, and you can see where I wore the track in there from the bearings. You know, and that's the hit some of these knives maybe can take, is a lot of people would like to see a hardened steel washer, so these hardened steel bearings are not riding on this softer titanium, so it doesn't eat a track in the blade like that. I know the Graham Razel Mid-Tech has those. A lot of knives do. The Chavez 228 has those hardened steel. But again, I'm comparing what, a $160 knife here in the ZT versus the higher end Mid-Tech, you know. It's kind of an unfair comparison, but I get it a lot too. Why would I ever pay that much for a knife? What are you getting? Well, I'm not saying they're cutting corners on the ZT, but you're getting a little bit more knife when you spend more money. So a lot of times you do get what you pay for. Not always, but a lot of the time it's not just hype. So let's see if that was locked down. Nope, that is a completely round pivot that can spin in there, and that is around here that can spin in there. So that's why the need for so much Loctite. That's why I put 2 drivers on both sides, so that it wouldn't spin around on me. So that could be an issue. Make sure you own 2 T8s, so you can take this guy apart. You're going to need a T6 too. I didn't have any issues with it spinning, but I guess I wouldn't with that much Loctite in there. You know what I mean? I'm going to squirt some lighter fluid on here. I buy lighter fluid all the time. Use it like it's free. It's cheap. It's like a couple bucks a thing. Couple bucks will last me a while. Cleans off all the grease and grit from here. If I was inside, I would also toothbrush and dish detergent this. You know, but this will do fine. Really will. Look at all that milling. Done really well. There's your lock bar insert. Wow, check out how thick that thing is. I don't know if even the 560 tab is that thick. So most of that locking surface is actually that hardened steel insert. And then you can see they actually poked the detent through That's part of the titanium that the detent ball is set in, which is fine. Great fit and finish. Look how that's all flush. It has to be because the blade needs clearance in there, right? Really well done. Let's take a look and see how well those bearings. Real quick, I wanted to mention this while I see it. Check out how the rear of the handle actually has a step for the standoffs to sit in. Do you see that? See how they sit in there? Which helps lock the knife down for lateral play. Does that make sense? If that's stepped in there and that's stepped in here, and you have point of retention being like an alignment, if this makes sense, I'm not sure I'm using the right terminology, but you've got your pin coming through here, connecting to this side. It's like, I guess, rebar holding it together. Then you've got your pivot coming through, straight barrel. So you've already got 2 points of retention here, and then you've got another 2 point of retention here. And then with this being stepped in, then of course you're locked down with that extra large pivot. It really makes the knife stable and stable over time for this type of play, right? So you might get your side-to-side play there. Sometimes you could have a knife with really tight tolerances up front here in the pivot, but your knife, if you don't have much holding it together in the back or a larger standoff or something like that, you can still get that wonkiness here, which will throw that blade, right, if it's connected to the pivot here. If the axis for the pivot is going side to side, it's making your blade go whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. And it does the same when it's open. It's still wiggling around if the knife is micro flexing like that. So anytime you can start to lock your knife down. Does that make sense? You can lock it down more, especially by using little machining tricks like that stepped rear and then doing 2 of them, not just 1 of them. It's good, you know, good stuff. It's a good job on that, ZT. I know you guys know what you're doing. I'm just trying to explain it, what I see. What did I say? We were going to look at those bearings. Let's pull them out, and I'm going to show you how I clean these dudes. Usually I take them on a towel, you know, just run them around to dry them off. And then of course you guys probably know lighter fluid evaporates really quick, so that's all good to go. We're going to reassemble this knife, put it back together. My findings, cheers. My findings were, I have no idea what happened. It doesn't look like these bearings are rusted. Possibly if that's stamped out of some sort of brass or bronze phosphor or whatever's holding those bearings together, maybe that had a little bit of patina or crud built on it. But the actual stainless steel bearings have no rust on them at all. So possibly that was just pocket lint and junk that happened to be brownish that looked like a little bit of rust. I'm glad to report that, though. I'm glad I did this on camera here. I'll show you guys what they look like and that there is no rust in there. It just look like junk in there. And that's one of the things that I kind of knock bearing knives. You know, for my personal EDC uses, they're awesome for flipping action, and they're real fun knives. And, you know, that's half of why we buy some of these knives. But in reality, you can make, you know, I've showed you guys a few knives by now that have washers that are just as smooth as bearings. But think about it, when you have your bearings that are actual round balls up against the flat blade, right? It has room for sandblasting dust to come down in there, or pocket lint, or potato chip crumbs. Whatever you put in your pocket, or whatever finds its way into your pocket, can make its way into the pivot. So, you know, they just might need a little bit more maintenance. And it's not a bad thing, as long as you know that going into it. They do help with the flipping action. It does seem like I tell you the truth, I was expecting these bearings to have a little bit of surface rust on them and kind of have ZT, you know, just see if you guys had the same issues going on. But really proud to report that looks like ZT did all their homework there. I mean, I didn't see any rust in there at all. So let's get the knife assembled back. I thought I was going to find some surface rust on that, and that's what we were going to find, but wasn't the case. Not a bad thing. I mean, I don't want to be negative on a knife. I love this knife. I just gave it a glowing review. Pretty sure you've probably seen that. Just trying to clean off some of the crud from here. Hopefully I can get into customizing this knife soon. We'll see. It's like everybody's stuff that's already been here is way more important than me doing this, but I am excited, and I do have one more video coming up on this knife. Hopefully it's not too excessive. I'll space it out, but I want to show you guys like the behind the scenes, what's going on in my head before I customize a knife, and like why I might make some of the decisions that I would make. Might not be interesting to everybody, but somebody might find it interesting. So we're going to start by putting this dude back in here. That's cool. I'm happy to see that too. The ramped pocket for this spacer to sit in. And really, ZT doesn't cut corners. Not that I've seen. They're a great company. And for warranty too, I've never had a problem getting parts like quick. As much as I love Spyderco, even quicker than Spyderco. We didn't clean this pivot off, but yeah, might as well. I didn't see any crust or anything on it. On the actual working area. I see a lot of Loctite in there. Holy smokes. Alright, we're going to put that in there. Got everything ready to go. I didn't clean this off. Our stop pin. And I didn't pay attention. You guys are going to be able to rewind the video to tell me. I didn't pay attention to which way these bearings were. But if they're like most knives that I've seen, usually this cupped in part goes towards the titanium or towards your hardened washer, and then the flat part for the surface will go towards your blade. So that's how I'm going to do it. So how do I load up my Tough Glide in my bearings? Very lightly. Less is more. Cheers. You don't want to put too much moisture in here because it will attract dirt and dust. You can lube these up and then kind of wait for it to dry. I like this needle applicator, and I just do like 2 little drips on both sides. And then I will, see, you can see it on my hand there. I just kind of rub it around. And then I'm going to set this with the flat side up here. And be very careful to not let any of your oil or lube, whatever you're using, get on your lock face there. That can cause some problems. And that's why less is more. You don't want to get that all sloppy looking, right? So we're going to simply press this lock bar down. Make sure that there's no lube on our lock bar face there. One more time, I'm going to wipe it with some of this loaded up lighter fluid rag here. Make sure everything looks nice. There's no grease or grit in that hole. Well, look good. And then push that lock bar down. Set that on there. Hopefully we can keep this all in frame for you. Oh, before I do that, one little trick I like to use too. Usually I won't use a light grease like this, but I forgot to bring in like my lithium grease. Is I like to put just the tiniest, little tiniest drop on that detent ball. You got to be careful. I usually don't use that lightweight. Usually I would like something like Chris Reeves, thicker grease there, because that's going to help lube that track, right, for your flipping action. And that should set on there pretty nice. And we've pretty much are getting a complete knife together here, right? You can let that sit. You don't have to put pressure on that. Let's lube this one up. A little drop there, a little drop here. Less is more. Roll it around in your fingers. Very nice. Put the flat side towards the blade. Push that down. Put the lid on it to make sure we don't have any grime in that track. We're good to go. Cleaned out. Put that should register straight down on there. That should hit back here. And hold it down with your finger. Run these in the back. I'm just going to set them in there first. And put that pivot in there just to kind of lock stuff down. Now we're probably going to need 2 drivers to tighten that up, but let's see if it will take even just a couple threads. Yep. It's always nice, in my experience, to, you don't want to tighten it at this point, but you do want to maybe start to feel a little bit of resistance and stop. Then switch to your back. We're going to switch to our T6. Go in the back. Not lock that down all the way, okay? Again, when you just start to feel resistance, back it off. Maybe even a quarter turn. Then, we're going to see how well we get our blade centering done up here. See how it's off right now? Of course it's going to be. This pivot's a little loose. So that will walk over. This spring is pushing that over right now. Let's see if I can tighten this up without touching that back side. Oh yeah. But again, I'm going to have to go back and Loctite this. So you see how I tighten this up before I let this go tight? Does that make sense? Because usually that will center up the blade nice. See how nice the center of the blade is? And now let's tighten this up and see if that will walk its way over. And if Zero Tolerance did their machining right up here with all of our points of retention here, so it doesn't let these slabs go up and down like this, right? When we screw this together, that should pull these slabs tight, and that blade should center up perfectly, which is really close right now. And I don't know why. I always like to go to the back, do a quarter turn, and do a quarter turn. It's almost like, I don't know if you guys are familiar with tightening a lug when you tighten a vehicle wheel. You don't want to tighten like one down really hard and then tighten one down really hard. You want a little bit. You go in like a star-like motion. You guys who are mechanics know what I'm talking about. Or you should. You don't ever tighten all the screws tight one at a time. You kind of walk them all down. You snug them all up in a row. Yes, I did tighten that one down pretty much where it needs to be, but I'm talking in this tight little pattern here. You don't have to go crazy. You will strip hardware if you go too crazy. I just go where I start to feel a little bit of pressure, and then I'll give it like another little quarter turn, maybe an eighth of a turn, just to make sure they're snug. Let's see what we got. Oh, beautiful. Now let's check the action on the knife. Let's see side to side play. Could go a little bit tighter. But again, remember, we didn't put two drivers on there. Let's see if it'll tighten up any like this. Nope, that is spinning there. Can you see it? Can you see the reflection showing here? Spinning. So let's put the other driver on there. We're just going to snug it up just a little bit. We're losing our sunlight here. We're going to have to call it a day. I will put the clip on for you guys. Here we go. A little bit. That's gorgeous. Let me know what you think about videos like this. No side to side, no up and down. Man, you get a lot of knife for the money on this. Let's go ahead and take our T6. And how I like to put clips on, because they can be tricky, is I put my screws in there first. Okay, and then I will slowly lower them down here. Take my T6, whatever that was, and we will tighten that just a little bit, tighten this just a little bit. I appreciate you guys hanging out with me tonight, exploring this knife together, making some really positive findings. No surface rust in those hardened steel bearings. What was it? I don't know. Now, can you see what I was doing? I was fine-tuning where I want that clip, because we have a choice to have it down there, way up here. I like it right in the middle. And then I will tighten it down. I will do a little bit here, a little bit here. I will go back down here, a little bit here, go back up here. There you go. Nice and snug. There it is, the ZT450. I have to go tie another lanyard on this again, but lockup is very nice. We have taken this knife down. We have performed all the maintenance it needed. We discovered that there was no rust issues, which was very surprising. I thought we were gonna find some. I'm glad we didn't, but I thought we were gonna find some. Got to look at the knife. The only other hit that I could give this knife is that this should have been a D shape on one of the sides or both sides, a lot like Spyderco does. And I know ZT does it by locking the back down with like a hex side of the pivot. This does look a lot better than that hex pivot that they use on a lot of their ZT models, but you know, just know you may have to use a bunch of Loctite. I didn't have any issues with it spinning, so if you use enough Loctite, you're gonna be fine. Just make sure you don't use too much and it drips in and ruins the action of the knife. Because man, if you got Loctite dripped in there and it got inside your bearings, that'd be a heck of a mess. So don't do that. That's it, guys. ZT450. Cheers. We're gonna get out of here. See ya.